Hi, I'm Jenny Robertson, founder of the On Purpose Woman Global Community and founder and publisher of On Purpose Woman magazine. I'm here to share the speaker portion of our Connections After Hours gathering of the On Purpose Woman Global Community. Nadine Hailey is speaking on Starting at 50. Nadine is currently the founder of the Virtual Hailey Group, where she provides online business management for small to medium-sized businesses. She also coaches and facilitates business-related workshops. Nadine formerly worked in state government for over 30 years with a decade of experience in leadership development. She's the author of How I Survived 31 Years in a Cubicle, a guide to soft skills. And she's also an 18-month vision board planner. 18 months. Wow. I'm impressed with that. So, Nadine, thank you for being here and sharing your wisdom about starting at
thank
50.
you for having me. I really appreciate it. And anytime I can get a chance to just share with like-minded women, how we make it over. So I appreciate this opportunity that you gave to me. And when I thought about what my topic would be, of course I could go into the soft skills and and the things I love to do because I love systems. So I always like talking about systems, but I figured I might get a little personal this time. And normally I don't. That's not something I normally do, but sometimes people have to hear because people see what they want to see, especially on social media. We can be anything we want to be on social media. I could say I'm, doing this, I'm doing that, and could be crying in the background. So sometimes transparency is needed. So that's what made me come up with the title, Starting at 50, because my life blew up at 50, literally blew up. And the thing is, a lot of it was my own doings. And so when I think back now, it was because I had changed. I didn't understand at that time why I was blowing up some things, but it was because I was changing. And the things that before 50 could no longer serve, they were no longer serving me. They could not fit in where my God, I'm a Christian woman, where he was taking me. I did not at that time understand. So I first start off by saying, for me, turning 50 was very important because both my parents died very young. So it wasn't as if I had something to say, oh, this is what that's supposed to look like. Or, okay, as far as like menopause, my mother died very young. So if she entered into menopause, she didn't go through it. So I didn't have an example to say, oh, this is what I'm supposed to do. So for me, turning 50 and going into this phase of my life was super important for me because I was thinking, I definitely can't do some of those things that I was previously doing going into my 50s. So I had a couple of firsts. I was, before 50, I was a single mother for many years until I got married. So for me, these first that came at 50 was, first of all, I was going through a divorce. So that meant my whole life was changing. So I'm like, okay, so what is that going to look like? You're used to having the partner in your life and in the home. Then the second big first I had was, for the first time in my life, I was living alone. I'd never lived alone. Either, I was living with my mother, my siblings, or then my daughters, then the husband, and now I'm living alone. Didn't know what that was going to look like. So that was another first. And then that job of 30 plus years, which it served its purpose, was no longer serving its purpose because I had changed. I often say to people, just like when you first start a job, you get a description of what that job is, what you have to do on the job. Well, you grow. And when you start to grow and the job description doesn't, something has to give. So that's just like telling someone that's in the first grade and that now is a sixth grader, they've aged up, but you still want them to do the things that a first grader. It's impossible. It just won't work. So now I'm retired. I'm going to leave my job. I'm going to retire. I have the years, but not the age. So now I'm going into this year with divorced, living alone, just me, and income. For the first time in over 30 years, I didn't have a job. I was like, what is that supposed to look like? So now what am I supposed to do? So all of those firsts, and I talk about those, as I say, starting in 50, is because 50 has started. And I didn't understand why would I, because I could have stayed on my job. I could have stayed in my marriage. You know, why did I need to blow up all of these things at 50? And I finally realized now that I'm almost 60, that it was because I had changed. And in changing, I had to discover me. And as mothers and wives and sisters and aunties, we know what everybody else's needs are. We got it. Most of us have it down pat. My nieces, nephews, all of them. But I didn't know what Nadine needed. And so while that time alone was frightening, it was scary. I learned some stuff about Nadine and, made some mistakes along the way, lost some things. That's another thing, financially, it was like, wow, what is this supposed to look like? And I think in one of the groups, we talked about that, about the financial uncertainty that's really scary because I'm used to not only my income full-time, my husband's income, and we were okay. And so now it's just a half an income. So I'm like, maybe this wasn't the best idea, but it was no going back because as I told a friend of mine that I used to work with, she said, don't blow up the bridge. I said, it's blown up. I blew it up. I didn't want to go back. So I blew it up. And I started blowing up a lot of bridges because it just no longer served who this 50-year-old was going to be. Again, I had my aunties, thank God for them, that I saw how they operated at 50 above. Menopause, that's another topic. My mother was so young. So for me, now that I have experienced that, I talk about it a lot. And I know some people say, why do you talk about menopause? Because I want to talk about it. I share with my younger sisters. I talk about it with my daughters, even though they're not in menopause, but I share with them some of the things to expect. Because unlike them, I did not have that. And it was my mother's fault, God called her home. So for me, going into the second phase, I needed to craft it my way. And, through praying in Christ, I went for directions, but I needed it to look a certain way. And so from these last 10 years, I've done just that. And it hasn't been easy. My goodness, no, it has not been easy, but it's been rewarding. And this talk is mainly to encourage, because sometimes we can get stuck. And it's like, we don't know what it is we want to do. And I mean, it took a couple of minutes for me to realize, because when I retired, someone asked me, so do you have a job? No. Do you know what you're going to do? No. Now, I don't promote that. As I coach people, I say, have a plan, have a 3-year plan on what it is you're going to do. And I'm honest with them. And when I tell them, I didn't. I would be lying if I said I had it mapped out. I just know that I had to blow up what was happening because it wasn't working for me. I'll say it like this. I found my voice. I have a good friend. We say it all the time. We found our voice. But the voice was always there. I just wasn't using it. So now that I've learned who I am, I'm okay with there's some things I don't want to do. And it's okay. Before, because I was a people pleaser, if it had to be done, I had to be there. I had to do it out of some sort of obligation. I just told my pastor at a meeting, and he used it in the sermon. I used to give out blank checks. And then I would get mad because they filled them out. People filled it out with what they wanted. Well, you gave them a blank check. So I learned my voice, and my voice, it don't have to be mean. It don't have to be nasty. It just has to have boundaries. And so I even now, as I'm still crafting, because I'm still working on Nadine. It's not like a done deal. I got it all packed. I'm still working on Nadine. And I'll share with some of the things that I had to work on. The financial piece, because I became one of those women that I used to talk about, dependent. I didn't have to worry about, well, this was paid, that was paid. I just left it up for him to do. And really, it was nothing wrong with having that security, but I needed to be responsible. I needed to be aware of how things were being done. So that was a big area that I had to change. Again, that's still being worked on. My health, huge, because I got very comfortable in just, I'll take care of that later. Well, as you turn 50, it ain't a whole lot of laters. So I had to make my health a priority. And in doing that, and that alone time comes in with walking more, exercising, eating better, making better choices as far as my rest. So those things became a priority for me, not until some situations came where I had problems with walking because of the weight gain. So I had to really take a look at, not point the finger at anyone, but actually take the responsibility for myself. Some of the other things that changed, another thing was the book. That's when the book came. I can't begin to tell you when it came to my mind, but I knew that I wanted to share with people how I was able to grow on my job. It might not have been my technical skills, but it was a lot of my soft skills. And so I just went on like a 2-year plan to just help people with resume building, also help people with helping with their soft skills and the importance of soft skills. That's where that book came. And that came after I retired as well. So then I became an author, and I'm thinking, whoa, look at you. You are author now. So again, and that was the question I asked, what was the hardest thing that you didn't think you could do? That wasn't real hard, but I didn't think I could do it. I never saw myself as a person that could write a book. And now I'm thinking about my second book. So it's just amazing how when you have that time to really be creative to the things that you're doing and introspect on yourself, it's a lot of things that you can do that you never even thought you could do. So starting over at 50 for me, it really revealed a lot of things that I may have not even realized I could do. So the book was one, that was the beginning. And then the business started. And I always tell it, and I really hate that I did not plan because I preach it all the time. Plan your business, and to be honest, I did not. It fell in my lap. I had a good friend, and Ann knows our good friend, who called me and said, could you do some work for me, now that you're retired? And I did that work and my business took off. And so then again, there was another love. I always was a helper. I always helped people. Leadership development has always been my strength. So I was able to channel some of those skill sets into a business. And during the time that the business really grew was during COVID, because most people were leaving jobs and I'm helping people work virtually. So for me, everything just fell in place. And what I, always see the cliche of the thing, when you think things are falling apart, they're actually falling in place. Some of it I couldn't see at the time, if I just be honest about it. Because when you're going through hard times, you really can't see the good in it. You just know, wow, this is not good. This doesn't feel good. But as time went on, I actually got to see how it was manifested into the person that I needed to be. Again, I always say, still growing, still learning. I believe you should be a lifetime student until you close your eyes. So I'm not there yet, but I learned something new about me every single day. And and what I do love, what I do as far as helping other businesses grow their businesses. And when I tell people about their business, it's personal. That's their babies. And, so you got to be really mindful when you're dealing with people in their businesses. So I enjoy what I do. Life at 50 looks totally different from what it looked like. And I mean, from every aspect of my life. But I would not trade anything for it. Not one single thing, even the tough times, even the things that I didn't think I could do. You know, even like I said, living alone. Some people would say, well, that's not that hard. It's hard for someone who's never done it. You know, now I really like it. So, that was one. Another thing that looks different now is traveling. I've always said I wanted to travel. And in the 50s, I got to go to Paris. I got to go to Amsterdam. We went to Dubai. And I'm thinking, wow, who would have thought? Because again, this was a young lady who was a single parent. And then she got married and now she's a divorcee. Who would think that these things would happen? So when I share these things, it's not to say that I've arrived, but it's to say that if it can happen for me, it can happen for anyone. But we just have to make sure that we're true to who we are. I think Jenny said that earlier. We have to be true to who we are. But that's sometimes easier said than done, because sometimes we may not know who we are. We just know that we're the wife, we're the mother, we're the grandmother, we're the auntie, we're the godmommy. That's who we are. But then there's things about ourselves that we have to uncover so that we can be the best version of ourselves. I think it's a disservice to go through life and never be true to who you are, you know, and never learn the things that just give you joy. And for me, I asked a question in our group, was your life simpler? And everybody had the different reactions. For me, my life is simple. My life is simpler because I know I have it mapped out. And I'm not saying I don't have those occasional monkey wrenches that come in and throw me off. But for the most part, I'm crystal clear on what works for Nadine. That's the part that's simple. The part that says, I know what won't work for me. And that's not to say that it's a bad thing. I just know that what won't work for me. So I am glad to be here today. I can talk a lot, but I refuse to chatter too much. And I'm open to questions or even some personal questions, because transparency is not something that I do often. But on the same token, in hearing my voice, you hear the good and the bad. So I'm just grateful for y'all allowing me to talk this time I've run off at my mouth.
Thank you, Nadine. And I will
Thank you.
ask everybody to unmute yourselves, and we're going to applaud and
Yeah.
hoop and holler and thank Nadine for her talk. So
Thank you.
woo-hoo. Thank you.
Excellent.
Thank you,
you.
Nadine. I'm going to
Wonderful.
I'm going to wrap it up here, and then we'll take questions after we go off camera. Okay.
Okay.
So thanks again. I love how you did your 50s, and your 60s are going to just be like remarkable, right?
I'm looking forward to them.
Yes. So I want to thank anyone else who's watching this live or watching the replay. If you'd like to join us for one of our Zoom gatherings or an in-person in Columbia, Maryland, Richmond, Virginia, or Tallahassee, Florida, comment below and I'll tell you how you can do that. Or you can also go to my website, which is opwgc.com, and find out all about our community. Thanks for watching.